Okay, so today's Torah portion is Vayetze, and I always say these Torah portions line up exactly and precisely with everything that's going on every single time. It just fascinates me and amazes me. Abba is so good and he's so perfect. Uh, I can't even begin to tell you the meticulousness that he points stuff out. Like there will be things going on in the week, and then he'll just point it out to me in the Torah portion, and I will know precisely what's going on because he puts it in the Torah portion every single week. It's just absolutely amazing. So this one is about he went out. It's about ascending ascending to Jerusalem, putting our hearts towards Jerusalem, but also about the ladder of Jacob. Um, and so we're going to talk a lot about Jacob and his marriages to both Rachel and Leah and how that all went down. So let's begin with Genesis 28:10. We're at Genesis 28:10. Oh, wait, let's pray first. Gotta pray first. Uh, Heavenly Father, we just come before you and we want to glorify your name. We just praise you and thank you for your word. Thank you for your revelation. Thank you that your timing is perfect and that you bring all things out for your good. Even when we feel like we're being attacked or there's something that has attacked us, you just show us your glory in it. You show us your meticulous timing. You use it for your good and your glory to glorify your word. And we just thank you, Abba, for bringing us all together every week. We love this time with you. We love this study with you. And just give us eyes to see and ears to hear. Help us to never look through the lens of the world or the lens of tradition, the lens of history, but instead look through the lens of your word first. We go to the source document of your word first, and then we filter everything else from there. I just thank you, Abba, that you have given us this time together, that you've healed us through your word, that you have brought us your revelation through all of these things. I just want to pray for the hostages in Israel. I want to pray for their release, Father, all of them. I just want to pray for their health and safety. I pray, Father, that your will is just being done over there, and people are seeking your will above all else. They're not seeking other things, but they're seeking to know what your will is in this situation, Father. And we don't know all of your plans. We don't know, and we don't understand your greater plans, your big plans. But we just trust you. We trust you in all that we see and all that we do. And we just lay our lives down before you as we just seek you in all things. Give us ears to hear your will for our personal lives, every step that we take, every relationship, every friendship. We just pray over that, Father, that you will give us great discernment on who to be yoked to and who not to be yoked to. And just give us discernment on teachers and instructors of your word. Give us discernment on the fruits that are being shown in people, that we may come close to your people and just avoid fruitless controversies. I just pray, Father, over all these people in this call today and all people on in the future listening to the recording. I just pray for their health. I pray for their marriages. I pray for their families. I pray for restoration in their lives. And I just declare absolute restoration over their lives, over their children, over every need that they have, every need that they have. I want to pray for financial needs. I want to pray for those who are in financial struggle, in financial bondage, that you just open the door of understanding for them. I want to pray for health needs. I want to pray over those who are suffering in chronic health issues. I want to pray for this against the spirit of confusion and the spirit of frustration in people's lives. I just want to rebuke the spirit of confusion and the frustration off of all of these people now. In Yeshua's mighty name, we just glorify you, Abba, forever and ever. Amen. Okay, let's get into Genesis 28:10.
And he came to a certain place and stayed there that night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, and to the north and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." And he was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." So early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on the top of it. He called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at the first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, "If God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you."
Okay, so some really interesting stuff going on here. Notice that the promise is repeated. So last week and the week before, we talked about how the promise was getting passed down, right? So Jacob got the promise last week from Isaac. He got the promise. He acquired the promise from Isaac, and now Jacob has the promise. So Jehovah is letting him know, yes, indeed, you have the promise. So this is really important to kind of think about when we think about the grafting in. We're going to talk a lot about grafting in today because it's so cool. When you think about the grafting in of Romans 11, Abraham had the seed of promise, but where did the promise get passed to, right? Abraham had the seed, and then what happened? Got passed to Isaac, got passed to Jacob. And then Jacob had the promise, and it got passed to his 12 sons, right? To the tribes of Israel. So very important to understand that the promise gets passed down the lineage into the 12 tribes of Israel. And that's like you have the 12 kings of Israel, and then you have the 12 kings of Ishmael, right? So conspiracy theory time. The stone that the coronation is on they take the stone from Scotland and they took it for King Charles's coronation. They actually think that this is the stone, and their claim is that stone was brought to them by Jeremiah. Okay. So if you're on the Zoom call, you can see what I'm showing here. It's called, if you want to Google it, you can just Google it. It's called the Stone of Scone. And you can just look up the Wikipedia. So they have this stone in Scotland, and they say it's the anointed stone that Jacob had, okay? And that it was brought to them by the prophet Jeremiah. And they use this stone to do the coronation of King Charles. Wild, absolutely wild. So if you ever want to look at that, you can look it up on Wikipedia. There's lots of information there. The other thing I wanted to look at was the name of Luz versus the name of Bethel. Now, Luz, if you look at the Hebrew of Luz, it means to turn aside, to turn astray. So this happened in a place that was called Luz, right? So Jacob is in this place called Luz, and it means to turn aside or to turn astray. And then it also means Luzat, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, means divination. So that's what that place was called. And then he renamed it. So there, obviously in the Bible, there's this whole process of renaming things, and he renames it to Bethel, which is the house of Yah. And I think, I'm just going to look up the location of Bethel. I think that's in Gaza. Yeah, I think it's in Gaza. It is. It's in Gaza. So that place where Jacob had, where that doorway is, where that gate is actually in the West Bank right now. So think about that. I think I've pointed out in the last few weeks, like all the different places that these are key places, and they're in Gaza. They're in the Palestinian territories. So that's always super fascinating to me. We'll leave it there. What else do I want to tell you guys about? I think that's about it. So a lot of people think that there's a gate to heaven there. So there's places there's lots of places that the tabernacle gets set up in the future, and there's places that things happen at that where people believe that there's gates to heaven. And I've even had different experiences where I went down to different places in the United States, and there's different spiritual warfare in different locations. And there's a reason why there's specific spiritual warfare over the United States and over different places. If you go to Jerusalem, people always say that there's so much spiritual warfare there. You could feel the spiritual warfare. When I went down to Texas near Houston, I could feel the spiritual warfare there. I'm from Canada, so we don't have the same kind of spiritual warfare here. We don't have the population. We don't have the history. It's just different. We have certain places that you can feel spiritual warfare. Vancouver Island, you can feel a lot of witchcraft going on there. But when you go to certain places in the US, you could feel it. Like when I went to Galveston, there was different spirits that I could feel there that I'd never noticed before. And then I found out they do a lot of voodoo there. We don't have voodoo in Canada, really. That's not a thing that's done in Canada as much. But if you go down to some of those places like Galveston and Louisiana and stuff, you got all that voodoo going on. And I was like, what is this spirit? Like, what is this spiritual warfare? And it was like a buzzing. I could feel it. So it's really, really interesting, the different places of spiritual warfare. And now think about Houston. That's where that concert was with that guy where the 8 kids died. That's where that concert was. They do things in specific locations for specific reasons. I think there's a lot of that going on in the States. Anywho, that's just a side note. So obviously Jerusalem would be another place where people think that there's more of an access. So what Jacob saw was a stairway leading to heaven. So there was an access where the messengers were coming in and coming out, which is really, really interesting. Let's go on to the marriage of Leah and Rachel. This is Genesis 29:1.
Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it, for out of that well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where do you come from?" They said, "We are from Haran." He said to them, "Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor?" They said, "We know him." He said to them, "Is it well with him?" They said, "It is well, and see, Rachel his daughter is coming with the sheep." He said, "Behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go, pasture them." But they said, "We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep." While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman, and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her.
Okay, I need to jump back because Shauna, you got it. You got it, Shauna. I just noticed that the stone rolling away for the living water. And I have to stop, and we have to stop there. I got my chills. Okay. Jacob went on his journey, he came to the land of the people of the east, and he looked and he saw a well in a field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep were laying beside it, for out of the well the flocks were watered. A stone was on the well's mouth. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and when the flocks had gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and put the stone back in place over the mouth of the well. You got to, that is like absolutely profound. When you think about Yeshua, the living water, all of that stuff, watering the sheep, it's just like, that's profound. And look at like, okay, so Jacob is a picture of the 12 tribes of Israel, right? And then Rachel is bringing him the sheep from Laban. So the wife Rachel is bringing the sheep from her country. Do you get it? Isn't that wild? I never noticed that before. Okay, so I had to stop for that. I think there was something else I was going to say. She was a shepherdess.
Yeah, I saw that too, shepherdess, right? Because we always hear shepherd, but we don't hear shepherds.
Yeah. And then it's a picture of all the shepherds, right? So they're each shepherding the flock. Now, as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, with his mother's brother, the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth. Jacob rolled the stone from the well's mouth. Wild. And watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept out loud. Just beautiful. I was noticing over the last few weeks, you have all these love stories at the well, love story at the well, love story at the well. And then when you look at Yeshua and the Samaritan woman, him, talking about her love life and how damaged her love life was, and how he's meeting her at the well. It's just like the most beautiful thing. And it's this picture of the people being gathered as a bride, right? So let's move on to the next part. I think we're at verse 21.
Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, that I may go into her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" Laban said, "It is not so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years." Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went in to Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years.
Okay, so just to explain this for people who are kind of new to this, he did not have to work another 7 years for Rachel ahead of time. He was given Leah, and then he was told, you got to complete the week. So in that time, in Hebrew understanding, even today, in Jewish understanding, a wedding is a week long. Okay, so their time of consummation, their time of consummating the marriage was a week long. And so what Laban is saying is you need to finish your wedding consummation time with Leah, and then you could have Rachel, but you're still going to work 7 years as well for Rachel. And so in the end, Jacob worked 7 years for Leah, 7 years for Rachel, and I think 7 years for the sheep. It worked out to be 21 years of labor that he did for Laban. There's a really interesting message here too, as far as Laban goes. You know how people say like the spirit of Jezebel, the spirit of, the spirit of Jezebel, the spirit of Ahab, those kind of things. Well, there's a spirit of Laban. There's a nature of Laban that's expressed here too, which is withholding the workers' wages, tricking people into working for you and being kind of shady in that way. And I just want to jump to James 5:1-11, where James is quoting and he's talking about the commandments of the workers and paying your workers on time. I just want to cover that. I always like to bring it back to the New Testament so people aren't like, oh, they just spend their time in the Old Testament. I want to show you that all of this is talked about in the New Testament. Okay. James 5:1. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming to you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and in their corrosion will be evidence against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days. Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying against you. And the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on the earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in the day of slaughter. And you have conformed and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you. Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord, and see how the farmer who waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until he receives the early and the late rains. You also be patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brothers, that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. As an example of suffering and patience, brother, take the prophets who spoke in the name of Jehovah. Behold, we consider those blessed who remain steadfast. You have heard of the steadfastness of Job, and you have seen the purpose of Jehovah, how Jehovah is compassionate and merciful. So he's talking about, and this is the Laodicea church. You see these same pictures in the Laodicea church. They think they're rich, but they're pitiful, poor, blind, naked. And then also talks about the silver and gold. This is talked about in the Laodicea church in Revelation 3, if you want to look that up. And then I pointed it out in Ezekiel 22. Ezekiel 22 is profound. It's profound. I'll do a video on Ezekiel 22 this week. But you can see the connections. It's the same themes throughout Scripture. And that's why it's so important to learn the themes and learn the patterns, because then when you learn the themes and learn the patterns, you start to notice the symbols over and over and over again. And that's how you know that Jehovah is not changing. The New Testament is not changing things. He's referring back to the old symbols, right? The other thing I wanted to point out was, do you recall how Lot offered his daughters up, and then his daughters ended up with him, right? And so that was like reciprocal justice. And then we have another example of this reciprocal justice in this story. So what did Yaakov do, right? Yaakov was the deceiver, right? And he deceived to get the blessing. And of course, Esau sold his blessing too. So there's a lot at work too. But he still had the same experience, right? It's like a mirror of an experience where he got the wrong wife. So he was deceived in a way. And it's this kind of picture. And you might wonder about this in your own life. Like, why am I going through this? Why am I going through this? And sometimes when you're going through stuff repeatedly, you want to look at what you're doing and because maybe Abba's trying to show you what you're doing through other people doing the same thing to you so that you can learn the lesson. He's mirroring it back to you so that you can learn the lesson. So as Jacob deceived and to get deceived his father, then in the future, you see that right away, he's deceived about his wives, right? Let's go back to the Torah portion. I believe we are at 31. So we're at 29:31.
When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased bearing.
Okay, I have to stop there because the names are so important. So as she's naming them, she's then describing what the names mean. Now, I want to look at attached to me. Now this time my husband will be attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons. So that is verse 34. And I just want to show you that word attached is go to Genesis 29. Attached, lawa. Okay, I'm probably saying this wrong. I'm gonna flip the camera because this is really important for us to look at. Okay. Okay, so we have attached, okay? Lawa. Where is it? Which is to be joined, to be attached, to bound, be bound to. Okay. And I want to look at these roots just so you guys can see this. Levi, right? Attached, Levi. Okay. So this is where the concept of the Levite comes from. The Levite is attached to Jehovah. Now, I went through last week what the Levites did, right? When it came to the sin of the golden calf, what did the Levites do? They were the ones that would stand up for Jehovah no matter what. Those are the Levites, okay? In the future, this will be Pinhas, right? Pinhas is the one with the covenant of peace. He was the one that's not afraid to stand up in the face of idolatry and say something. But we need to look at this in the context of us as grafted in believers, okay? So we need to go to, I have it here, Isaiah 56, one of my favorite books. Let not the foreigner, that's all of us, most of us, let not the foreigner who has joined, let's look at that word joined. Same word. Levied. The foreigner Levied himself to Jehovah, say, Jehovah will surely separate me from his people. Behold, let not the eunuch say, the eunuch say. Okay, so eunuch, just so you guys know, eunuch is someone who was, I don't know how to explain it, castrated, I guess, so that they could be in service of the king, in service of royalty or politicians or whatever, okay? The eunuchs were not allowed into the temple grounds because they had been altered, okay? So they had been altered. They were not allowed to enter the temple. And what he's saying is even the foreigners who have Levied themselves to the Lord, attached themselves, grafted in themselves to Jehovah, they will not be separate from his people. And even the eunuchs, who normally were not allowed to get into the temple grounds, do not say, behold, I am a dry tree. You're not a dry tree because you've been joined, you've been grafted in, right? Thus says Jehovah to the eunuchs who keep my Sabbath, who choose the things that please me. Sabbaths, that includes the feast days. That's not just the weekly Sabbath. That includes the feast days. Who choose the things that please me and hold fast to my covenant. I will give in my house and within my walls a monument and a name better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall never be cut off. Now, if you want to look at this, go look at the book of Revelation, look at the churches and who gets a new name, an everlasting name, and that will connect the dots for you, okay? So in the book of Revelation, we have that picture of getting a new name, an everlasting name, okay? When you overcome, okay? When you overcome. And the foreigners who Levi themselves to Jehovah and minister to him, to love the name of Jehovah and to be his servants, his ministers, everyone who keeps the Sabbath and does not profane it and holds fast to my covenant, I will bring them to my holy mountain. Now, this is where it really needs to hit home because holy mountain, okay? He has a holy mountain and it has something to do with his Sabbath, okay? And the covenant. His holy mountain has something to do with the Sabbath and the covenant. Let's hop to Isaiah. Yeah, we need to cover this. I just want to make sure you guys got this. Let's hop to Isaiah 14. How you have fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn. Okay, Lucifer. How you were cut to the ground like a tree that you would cut down the tree, you know what I'm saying? And who the nations lay low. You will say in your heart, I will ascend to heaven above the stars of Yehovah, Elohim. I think that's Elohim. El, above the stars of El. I will set my throne. So he wants to set his throne on high. He wants to sit on the mount, another mountain. We have a different mountain here of assembly. Okay. So the fallen star that wants to sit on the mount of the assembly, that wants to ascend above God, he has a mountain as well. Okay. He says, in the far reaches of the north, I will ascend above the height of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Okay. He's trying to make himself like God. But you are brought down to Sheol, to the far reaches of the pit. Those who see you will stare at you and ponder over you. Okay. So I want to look very closely at this mount of the assembly. Assembly, okay? Assembly, Moedim. That's the Sabbaths. So he's got a mountain that he's trying to put a throne on that is connected to the feast days, the Sabbath, okay? So he's building a false mountain, right? Are you guys picking this up? The enemy is building a false mountain. And we just went over where the true mountain is, okay? So if we look at assembly, it's the tent of meeting with God, okay? I just want to look at Moed.
Yeah, I was thinking too, sister, the Holy Tabernacle, right? The New Jerusalem.
Yeah. And so we'll get into this with Hosea 2. This is not. Assemblies. Okay, so assemblies, Yahweh assembles, okay, his assemblies. And oh, wow, this is cool. Okay, so it's connected to Ma'adeh, which is the ornaments. Remember, I did a video recently on the ornaments that show up in Exodus. So they got to remove the false ornaments, the false days. That's what that's connected to, because their jewelry was already their jewelry was already off. 5141. Okay, there it is. I'm looking at the wrong word too, but that's interesting as well. Okay, so Moed, an appointment, a fixed time, a season, specifically a festival, convocation by year by implication. Okay, so the enemy, Lucifer, the fallen one, who wants to make his throne above the most high God, he wants to sit on the mount of the assembly. Okay, and Yehovah says to those foreigners who join themselves to Yehovah and minister to him and love the name of Yehovah to be his Sabbath, and servants and everyone who keeps his Sabbaths and does not profane it and holds fast to his covenant, these I will bring to my holy mountain. So there's a holy mountain, and then there's the false mountain that Hasatan is building. I'm hoping this hits home for you guys. People wonder why I make the videos that I make, and they think I'm being divisive, but they don't get it. So I'm hoping that you will take this forward and tell a friend. Okay? Tell a friend, everyone. Let's get back to, I wasn't planning on going into all that, but I think Yehovah has a plan in all things, right? Where were we? What's that?
I was just going to say, if y'all want to know where the feast days are, so those of you that are coming in new, go to Leviticus 23.
Yeah. Yeah, go to Leviticus. And if you're just learning the feast days, I have books I wrote in really simple terms and for like beginners, and they're all on my website, and they're just by donation. Like if you only have $1, leave $1. If you don't have anything, leave nothing. That's fine. They're just for you to learn like the basics, okay? And they're up on my website. I have a spring one and a fall one. Okay, let's go back to the Torah portion and get back on track here. So we're in this process where Leah's having her. Oh yeah, that's why we got into this, because Levi, right? So Levi is that picture of being joined. And so what is the royal priesthood? Those who have been joined, grafted in the royal priesthood. So if you're grafted in, and it has to do with his Sabbaths and his covenants and his feasts, you know, that's kind of the picture. The picture is not that you're separate, that you are a different Gentile church that gets to do different feasts. That's not the picture. The picture is you're grafted in. You're Levi now. You want to be Levi, right? Sorry, I don't know why it's lagging. So that is the name Levi. So this is the moment where Leah names her son Levi because she's going to be attached to her husband. And then at the very end, her last son, she names Judah. And that means this time I will praise the Lord. So she's learning through this process. She's going and having all of these babies because she's hoping that her husband will love her. And she's hoping that she will have that love that Rachel gets from Jacob. But in the end, she learns to just praise Jehovah. Praise Jehovah, no matter what is happening, no matter what is going on, she learns just, I will praise him. I will just praise him first. And then she ceased bearing. Now we're going to move on to Rachel and her children. We're at Genesis 30, verse 1.
When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. She said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I shall die." Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" Then she said, "Here is my servant Bilhah. Go in to her, so that she may give birth on my behalf, that even I may have children through her." So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went in to her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, "God has judged me, and has also heard my voice and given me a son." Therefore she called his name Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "With mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and have prevailed." So she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Then Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, "Good fortune has come." So she called his name Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, "Happy am I, for women have called me happy." So she called his name Asher. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" Rachel said, "Then he may lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes." When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, "God has given me my wages, because I gave my servant to my husband." So she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and she bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, "God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will honor me, because I have borne him 6 sons." So she called his name Zebulun. Afterwards she bore a daughter, and called her name Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her, and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son, and said, "God has taken away my reproach." And she called his name Joseph, saying, "May the Lord add to me another son."
Yeah, just want to stop there for 1 second. And I'm sure you're all wondering about these mandrakes. Sorry. I'm sure you're all wondering about these mandrakes. So there's many theories on the mandrakes. No one knows what they are. The theory is some people say they're medicinal and some people say they're an aphrodisiac of some kind, but basically they're bartering with each other over these mandrakes to have the night with Yaakov, their husband. A lot of times people kind of wonder about the polygamy aspect of the scriptures, and I just want to point out that when you see the polygamy aspect in the scriptures, it's always met with like a lot of infighting, a lot of jealousy, a lot of problems. It was never, it's like one of those things. It's like it happened and it happens today. How many people have multiple wives today, right? They don't look at it like that, but if you have a divorce, a couple divorces under your belt, you have multiple wives that you have to take care of. If you have multiple children with different women, then you have multiple wives that you have to take care of. It's the same practice today. And what does it cause? It causes infighting. It causes problems. It's not the ideal. But Jehovah doesn't, he's not going to say, stone the ex-wife or whatever. It's he wants the women covered. He wants the women protected. His heart is you provide for your exes, you provide for your children. That's his heart. Okay. But his ideally, it's one family, one house, right? Another example of this is Hannah's sister wife. And in the text, when she talks about Hannah's sister wife, she calls her trouble. So it could easily have been somebody that her husband cheated with or her husband just left with, right? And it's the same thing that happens today, you guys. It's the same stuff that happens all the time today, but we just look at it different. We don't look at it like multiple wives, but really it is multiple wives, right? Nothing new under the sun. And the same problems come from it. The exact same problems come from it. Okay, yeah, we'll talk to you later. Sounds good. You too. Yeah, so what I was saying is it's Abba's heart that you take care of your responsibilities. If you have children, you take care of your children, all of those things. And I just want to point that out because a lot of people use these scriptures as like, we should have multiple wives. I don't think that's, there's no commandment. There's commandments even for the kings to not take on too many wives. That if they take on too many wives, it becomes a problem, right? And so these patterns repeat over and over again. So let's move on to Jacob's prosperity. As
soon as Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, that I may go, for you know the service that I have given you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Name your wages, and I will give it." Jacob said to him, "You yourself know how I have served you, and how your livestock has fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. But now when shall I provide for my own household also?" He said, "What shall I give you?" Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you will do this for me, I will again pasture your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep, and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later when you come to look into my wages with you. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted stolen." Laban said, "Good, let it be as you have said." But that day Laban removed the male goats that were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in the charge of his sons. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's flock. Then Jacob took fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees, and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the sticks. He set the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks in the troughs, that is, the watering places, where the flocks came to drink. And since they bred when they came to drink, The flocks bred in front of the sticks, and so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks toward the striped and all the black in the flock of Laban. He put his own droves apart and did not put them with Laban's flock. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob would lay the sticks in the troughs before the eyes of the flock, that they might breed among the sticks. But for the feebler of the flock, he would not lay them there. So the feebler would be Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys.
So he's doing some kind of interesting process to bring about these speckled sheep, which I find really interesting. So friends of mine a few years ago, they got involved with the Jacob's Sheeps project, and you can Google this. They got involved with bringing the heritage of the Jacob sheep back to Israel. They had the strain of sheep. Somehow they had this strain of sheep that was the original Jacob's sheep. I don't know how. You probably look on their website how they determined this, but they actually took the sheep and brought them back to Israel. And this was probably about, I want to say about 8 years ago, is when they started bringing these sheep back to Israel. The thing with these sheep that are the Jacob sheep, though, is they're not actually that profitable to raise. They're very small. Their coats aren't good for wool. They're not that profitable to raise nowadays because sheep have been bred to have more meat now. They've been bred to have more of a coat now. And so these sheep are not actually that lucrative to own. But anyways, they have brought these sheep back to Israel, and you can Google and look that up. Very interesting how they've done that. And so now Jacob is going to flee from Laban. He's worked for him for 21 years. He's kind of been away from the land. So they've been promised the land, but he's been out working for Laban. I believe Laban was in a Mesopotamia area. And so he's been doing that, and he's been out there working for him. And now he's going to go back to the land. Going back up to Genesis, I forgot to point this out in Genesis 28:19. So Yaakov made a vow saying, if Yah will be with me and keep me in the way that I go, I will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again into my father's house in peace. And Yehovah shall be my Elohim, and this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be Yah's house. And all that you shall give me, I will give a full tenth for you. So in that moment, Yaakov is promising to do the tithe. He's promising that in the future, when I have acquired, he doesn't have anything at this point. Remember, he's working for Laban. He's working the 21 years for Laban for daughters and sheep. He doesn't own anything, and he's not in the land yet. So this promise that he's made is for when he enters the land. And you see this in the future Torah portions. You'll see this when the people come into the land. That's when they do the tithes, because that's when they have the Levites and all of that stuff. So you'll see that in the future when we get into that. I actually think it's way farther in the future, but I just want to point this out. So this is the promise he made, that when he gets established, that's when he's going to bring the tithe. And that's kind of, well, we heard the tithe from Abraham with Melchizedek, but then we hear it again with Jacob. And he's also saying, when I come to my father's house in peace. He's not in his father's house right now. He's with Laban, right? So he's not in his father's house, and he's definitely not in peace. There's lots of turmoil and all sorts of things going on. Let's go back to Jacob flees from Laban. So we're at verse 31, Genesis 31:1.
Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has gained all this wealth. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength, Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that mated with the flock were striped, spotted, and mottled. Then the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob, and I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up your eyes and see, all the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land, and return to the land of your kindred. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, Is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Paddan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob tricked Laban the Aramean by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all that he had and arose and crossed the Euphrates, and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. When it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsman with him and pursued him for 7 days, and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What have you done that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and trick me and did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre? And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And now you have gone away, because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours, and take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the 2 female servants, but he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, Let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of women is upon me. So he searched, but did not find the household gods. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, What is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us 2. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was. By day the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night." Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, "The daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters or for their children whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar-Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me today." Therefore he named it Gilead and Mizpah, for he said, "The Lord watch between you and me when we are out of one another's sight. If you oppress my daughters, or if you take wives besides my daughters, although no one is with us, see, God is witness between you and me." Then Laban said to Jacob, "See this heap and the pillar which I have set between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me to do harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us." So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, and Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. They ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home.
Do you ever notice how it's kind of a picture of Exodus? It's a picture of Exodus, like he gets so far away, right? And then he's being pursued, and then he's able to continue. I just noticed that. So one thing that's really interesting to point out is this discussion right here where they name the pillar, and Laban calls it Jegar-Sahadutha, but Jacob calls it Gilead. Now this is an indication of the languages that were being spoken at that time. So Laban is speaking an Aramaic type of tongue, an Aramaic Hebrew tongue, and then Yaakov is speaking the Hebrew from before. He's speaking the original Hebrew from before the Tower of Babel. So it's interesting because they're calling it different things, but it's the same thing, but it's different things. Yeah, you'll see the stones and the boundary stones and the pillars, and that'll come up again in the book of Joshua, where we see them also. There's stones there, and it's really interesting to see the different boundary stones and where they are. And there's a commandment in, I think, Deuteronomy, where you're not to move the boundary stones. You're not to move these are borders. So what they're doing is essentially making a border between the two groups, saying this is your side, this is our side. We're putting a border here, and even to this day we see all this fight over borders and places, and people are moving the borders and moving the boundary stones, and you're not supposed to do that. There's a command against moving those stones, right? The other interesting thing is Laban, the way that Laban claims all the things for him, even though Jacob was the one doing all the increase. All the increase came from Jacob. He was working day and night. He was slaving for Laban, just like in Mitzrayim when the people were slaving for Mitzrayim. And then Laban answered and said, "These daughters are my daughters. These children are my children. The flocks are my flocks. All that you see is mine," right? But he's already even established that, yeah, I've been blessed because Jacob has been in my presence. That's why I've been blessed. That's why my flocks didn't get eaten. That's why I have this increase, is because Jacob was here. And the promise came upon Laban by Jacob's presence with him. And that's when Jehovah says to Abraham, those who bless you will be blessed, and those who curse you will be cursed. And it's like the blessing comes just even from eating the crumbs from the master's table. I've talked about this before. What does Yeshua say? Even if you eat the crumbs from the master's table, you're blessed. You're being blessed in just the crumbs from the master's table. How much greater is it that you can be grafted in and partake at the master's table, right? So you can see here that Laban is being blessed just by the presence of Jacob in his camp. Let's move on to the last verse. Jacob fears Esau, and then we'll get into Jacob and Esau and their reunion in the next Torah study.
Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." So he called the name of that place Mahanaim.
Okay. Before we leave this section, I was thinking during the last reading about how, the wives combat against each other, just like you see like different groups of Christians and believers combating against each other and being like always fighting because they want Yeshua to love them the most. They want Yehovah to love them the most, and they're fighting for the love of Yehovah when he's being a husband to all of us, right? He's being everyone's husband, but they're battling and they're trying to tear each other's houses down, right? They're trying to tear apart each other. And I was thinking about how that's such a picture of the wives. You see it in brothers all the time. Like we see it in Jacob and Esau. We saw it in Cain and Abel, where they're trying to destroy each other for the inheritance, right? So the men are trying to destroy each other for the inheritance. The brothers are trying to destroy each other for the inheritance. And the wives are trying to destroy each other for the love, for the affection. Very interesting, because these themes play out in a bigger sense as well, right? Let's move to Hosea. And this is like, you guys, I can't even begin to tell you. I'll tell you the story. I will begin to tell you. So last night I started getting messages and people are like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they're like, "Oh, Inspiring Philosophy did a video about you." And I was like, "Okay, well, it was bound to happen. I'm talking about Christmas, it's bound to happen." And so people were concerned and they're messaging me. And I was like, "Oh, well, maybe I'll respond. Maybe I won't." I usually don't try to get involved in those things because it just ends up to be like exactly like we were just talking, the two wives bickering at each other. And it's just not fruitful, right? It's not helpful. It's not fruitful. Everything gets taken out of context. You're doing sound clips and you're not really looking at the full study that people are doing. And then you take things out of context. So you're actually, it ends up being gossip, and it ends up being a thing called Lashon Hara. So Lashon Hara is the evil tongue, and you're speaking evil against somebody. You're misrepresenting their position and their point of view. And this happens all the time when people do constant stitches. When people are doing stitching, they end up having the evil tongue. And you end up doing it without even trying to do it. And some people do it better than others. Some people really lean into having the evil tongue. And you have to tell me your dream, because people have dreams and they're supposed to tell me about them. It happens all the time. If I'm ever in your dream, tell me about it, please. So anyways, he made this video. All these people are coming to me and I'm like, well, whatever, it is what it is. And I'm not too worried about it. I'm not too concerned, because it's like in Hosea, there's this verse, and we're going to read it, and just like so perfect today. In Hosea, it's like a mist, right? The permanent things, the things that are going to be with us forever, are the word of Yah, are the way that we refine the silver, the way that we, but things like this, like things like stitch videos and that's a mist. It's going to dissipate into nothing, right? The word of Yah is what is the solid ground. Everything else dissipates into nothing. The sun comes up and the mist goes, right? So I'm not really too concerned, but it was so interesting because I started going through Hosea last night and this morning, and Hosea is specifically, like, it blew my mind, specifically about this topic. It is specifically Hosea. Hosea is the only prophet that was sent to the northern kingdom, that was specifically from and to the northern kingdom. Now, what is the northern kingdom? The northern kingdom is the 10 tribes that were divorced from Israel. They were divorced from Yah because of their idolatry, and they refused to acknowledge their idolatry. They refused to repent of their idolatry, and thus they were divorced from Israel. Now, this just happened to be the Torah portion this week, and I was like, this is crazy. This is right on point with what we're discussing, because I was pointing out the symbols of Assyria, right? Whether I got the name Nimrod wrong or not, it doesn't matter. The symbols are the same. I was pointing at the symbols, and the symbols are the symbols of Assyria. And Assyria is actually spoken about in this Hosea, and it's literally like, the Syrians can't save you. The Syrians can't save you. And this whole prophecy is about repenting, turn your hearts towards Jerusalem, stop going after your idols. What is turning your heart toward Jerusalem? Turning your heart towards Jerusalem is you're moving, you either have your heart shining towards Assyria, right? The symbols of Assyria, whatever Assyria is doing, you have your heart shining towards that, you're bowing towards that, praying towards that, giving all your energy and affection, all your time and your resources, your offerings and your sacrifices, right? What are offerings and sacrifices? Things that you put money into, things that you put time into, things that you put energy into. So if you're putting all your time, energy, devotion into the symbols of Assyria, into their ornaments. Remember, we talked about ornaments. Ornaments is connected with the feasts and festivals, right? Yehovah tells the people, take off your ornaments, take off the false feasts and festivals, take them off and come to the mountain before me. We talked about the two different mountains. You have the mountain of Assyria, the king of Assyria, and then you have the mountain of Yehovah, right? His feasts, his festivals, Zion, his Jerusalem. You turn during the feast, you are turning towards Jerusalem. You're turning towards the city of peace, right? And we see this again. I just want to clarify that we do see this in the New Testament. We see it in Revelation 3 when he calls Philadelphia. He puts the name of New Jerusalem on Philadelphia specifically, and he calls them pillars in the city. So it's this language of turning your heart towards Jerusalem. And where are all the feasts and festivals of the Bible kept? In Jerusalem. Passover is about, you go to Jerusalem for the Passover. For Sukkot, you go to Jerusalem, right? It's either you're directing your worship and your praise towards what Jerusalem is doing, the city of peace is doing, or you're directing it back to Assyria, back to Egypt, right? And so Hosea just covers this beautifully. We're going to start at the Torah portion starts at Hosea 12, but I want to start at Hosea 11. So the beginning of Hosea is not the prophecy. The prophecy starts at Hosea 11. So I want to start there, even though the Torah portion starts at 12. And so I'll have to read that part. And you'll get how profound this is, once we start reading it. It's just, Abba's timing is perfect. Every single time the Torah portions match what is going on around you. When you start to read the Torah portions every week, you're going to notice that it matches whatever the theme is. Last week, the theme was Esau and Jacob in battle, and Esau trying to kill Jacob. It was the exact same thing going on in the world, right? There was this battle going on in the church in the Bible. You find the Torah portions at ffoz.org. That's where I read them from. Okay, Hosea 11:1. When Israel was a child, I loved him out of Egypt. I called my son. The more they were called, the more they went away. They kept sacrificing to Baals and burning offerings to idols. And yet it was I who taught Ephraim to walk. I took them up by their arms. They did not know that I healed them. Okay, so Ephraim. So who's Ephraim? When you hear Ephraim is the capital of the northern kingdom. Okay, that's why the northern kingdom and Ephraim are consistently referred to in the same manner. Okay, so it's kind of like saying when you're talking about America and you say Washington, right? You're saying, oh, Washington this, Washington that, right? It's the strongest, the center, the strongest place, the place where all the politics is done. Ephraim was the strongest tribe of the northern kingdom, and that's why you see Ephraim interchange. So when you hear Ephraim, that's how you're going to know they're talking about the strength of the northern kingdom. Okay, and so Ephraim at this time, they were starting to build false altars. They were not going to Jerusalem to do sacrifices. They were not looking towards Jerusalem to do sacrifices. They were building their own altars everywhere, right? Building golden calves, just like in Exodus. It's the same story. It's just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. They did not know that I healed them. I led them with cords of kindness, with bands of love, and I became to them as one who eases the yoke on their jaws. I bent down and fed them. They shall not return to the land of Egypt, but Assyria shall be their king. because they have refused to return to me. So instead of returning to Egypt, like the people wanted to do in the wilderness, the northern kingdom is looking to Assyria. Assyria want to make Assyria their king. Now, you guys, the perfection of all of this is wild. The Asher, the king Asher, right? The god Asher. The god Asher is shown above the tree. Okay, so those reliefs that I showed from the Assurbanipal reign, you can see there's a little god up above with wings, right? A winged deity above the tree. That is the god Asher. Asher is a god of war and kingship. War and kingship on the top of the tree, right? Argue it all you want, but use your discernment, you guys. Use your discernment. Northern kingdom, trees, Asher. Okay. So these people are turning their hearts towards Assyria now instead of turning back to Egypt. Okay. But they're still in idolatry. They're still looking at the symbols of idolatry. The sword shall rage against their cities and consume the bars of their gates and devour them because of their own counsels. They're seeking their own counsels instead of looking at the word. My people are bent, tala. Let's look at that word. They have a mental dependence. My people have a mental dependence, tala. They habituate, they hang on, turning away from me. And though they call out to the Most High, he shall not raise them up at all. They're calling out to the Most High, but they are bent. Their mental focus is bent on turning away from him and turning towards Assyria. How can I give you up, O Ephraim? How can I hand you over, O Israel? How can I make you like Adamah? How can I treat you like Zeboim? My heart recoils within me, and my compassion grows warm and tender. I will not execute my burning anger. I will not again destroy Ephraim, for I am a God, not a man, the Holy One in your midst. I will not come in wrath. They shall go out after Jehovah, and he will roar like a lion. And when he roars, his children shall come trembling from the west. They shall come trembling like the birds of Egypt and like doves from the land of Assyria, and they will return to their homes, declares Jehovah. Ephraim has surrounded me with lies, and the house of Israel with deceit. But Judah still walks with God and is faithful to the Holy One. So he's speaking about the northern kingdom and how they're going to return. They're going to figure it out. This is what's happening now. The Torah has gone out from Zion, right? And it's starting to wake people up. They're starting to realize what this stuff is all about. They're starting to recognize these symbols. So he's going to roar at them like a lion. Like the Lion of Judah is going to roar at them, and they're going to figure it out. Okay. In the book of Revelation, there's a verse where he's like, if you don't repent, it's the stumbling block of Balaam and Balak. And if you don't figure the stumbling block of Balaam and Balak, which is what all of this is, then he's going to come out at you with the sword of his mouth. What is the sword of his mouth? That's the people speaking his word and showing you in his word the truth and cutting down that idolatry, cutting out that idolatry and showing people the truth. That's the sword of Yeshua's mouth going out, right? So anyone who's out here speaking truth and trying to get people to look at what the word actually says, they're being the sword of Yeshua. They're being the sword of the word, right? Okay, so now we're going to go to Hosea 12:1. Ephraim feeds on the wind and pursues the east wind all day long. They multiply falsehood and violence. They make a covenant with Assyria, and the oil is carried to Egypt. So they're making covenants with Assyria. I don't know how I can make it any clearer. I don't know. Those of you who get it, you get it. And those who are not seeing it yet, they're not going to see it. Just pray for them. Yehovah has an indictment against Judah. He will punish Jacob according to his ways. He will repay him according to his deeds. In the womb, he took his brother by the heel, and in his manhood, he strove with God. He strove with the angel, and prevailed. He wept and sought his favor. He met God at Bethel, and there God spoke with us. And Yehovah, the Lord of hosts, the Yehovah in his memorial name, so you, but by the help of your El, return. The help of your El return. Hold fast to love and justice and wait continually for your God. A merchant in whose hands are false balances, he loves to oppress. And Ephraim has said, but I am rich, and I've found wealth for myself in my labors. They cannot find in me iniquity and sin. So those who have been turning their hearts to Assyria, they're the ones that say, I am rich. Where do you guys hear that as well? Revelation 3, the Laodicea church. I'm rich. I found wealth for myself by my labors, by the things that I'm doing. I'm building up whatever to Assyria. They cannot find in me inequity or sin. So we got it all figured out. We have no sin in us. We're good. We're rich. We're good. We can do whatever we want. It's okay if we make idols to Assyria, that we yoke ourselves to Assyria. It is fine. That's what these people are saying. Do you see how this goes to Revelation 3? You say you're rich. You say you're good. You say you're fine. You say you don't have to check for idolatry in your house, right? Not checking for the idolatry in your house. It's okay. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter if it looks like idolatry. It's, quacking like idolatry. We're fine. It's Laodicea, guys. It's Laodicea. I am Yehovah, your Elohim, from the land of Egypt. I will again make you dwell in tents as in the days of your appointed feast. So he's going to get them into the place where they're going to go dwell in tents to the appointed feast. This is good news. He's going to bring the people who are doing the idolatry out and bring them into his tent. He's going to show them. He's going to do it. But we don't, we have to speak the truth. We have to send the truth out there, but he's going to change the hearts and minds, right? I spoke to the prophets. It was I who multiplied visions, and through the prophets gave parables. If there is iniquity in Gilad, they shall surely come to nothing. In Galgal, they sacrifice bulls. Their altars are like stone heaps on the furrows of the field. Jacob fled to the land of Aram, where Israel served for a wife, and for a wife he guarded sheep. So Israel served for a wife. For a wife he guarded sheep. It's very prophetic for the final kingdom as well. By the prophet, Yehovah brought Israel up from Egypt, and by a prophet he was guarded. Ephraim has given a bitter provocation. So his Adonai will leave his blood guilt on him. I will repay him for his disgraceful deeds. I think that's the full Torah portion. No, we go to 14. Okay, so let's keep going. When Ephraim spoke, so Hosea 13, Hosea 13, when Ephraim spoke, there was trembling. He was exalted in Israel, but he incurred guilt through Baal and died. And now they sin more and more. They make for themselves metal images, idols skillfully made of their silver, all the works of a craftsman. And he said, and it was said to them, those who offer human sacrifice kiss calves. So it had gotten to the point that they were doing human sacrifice. And so what he's saying here is they're offering up humans. They're destroying humans. They're killing humans. And that's their sacrifice. And they're kissing the calves. They're kissing the golden calves, right? They don't mind if they're sending people to destruction, but they're happy to kiss the calves, right? Therefore, they shall be like the morning mist for the dew that goes away, that early goes away. So like a morning mist, as soon as the sun comes up, that mist dissipates and disappears and is gone. And that's what they will be like. It'll be like the morning mist just burnt up. Like chaff that swirls from the threshing floor, like smoke from a window. But I am Yehovah, your Elohim, from the land of Egypt. You know no God but me, and besides me, there is no Savior. It was I who knew you in the wilderness, in the land of drought. And when they grazed, they became full, and they were filled, and their hearts lifted up. Therefore, they forgot me. So I am to them like a lion, like a leopard, I will lurk beside the way. I will fall upon them like a bear robbed of her cubs. I will tear open their breasts, and I will devour them like a lion, as a wild beast would rip them up. He destroys you, O Israel, for you have sinned against your helper. That word helper is Ezer. It's the same word for the helpmate, Ezer Kenegdo. He destroys you, O Israel, and you are against me, against your helper. So here, Ezer is being used to describe Yehovah as your helper, just like a wife is used to be described as your helper. Where now is your king to save you in all your cities? Where are your rulers to whom you said, give me a king and princes? I gave you a king in my anger, and I took him away in my wrath. So they had called for King Saul. I have to tell you guys something really interesting about Saul and Sheol. Okay, so if you do a word study on Saul, the name Saul, and a word study on the name Sheol, it's Shin Aleph Vav Lamed. Both words, so they're changed with the vowels. The vowels change the word, but Saul and Sheol are the same vowels. It's Shin Aleph Vav Lamed. I found that fascinating. So Yehovah, the people cried out for a king because they didn't want to take the responsibility and do the right thing. So they cried out for a king, and then he gave them Saul, right? And then he took the king away when they were mad, right? The iniquity of Ephraim is bound up, his sin is kept in store. The pang of childbirth comes to him, for he is an unwise son. What happens in the last of days? Pains as in childbirth. So here we go. The pangs of childbirth come for him. You do not want to be in this camp of Ephraim right now. You do not want to stay there. You want to come out of her, my people, and turn your hearts away from Assyria and towards Jerusalem, right? Because this is the childbirth. These are the pains of the pangs before Yeshua comes, right? The pangs of childbirth to come. If you want to look more into that, Isaiah 66. For he is an unwise son. He's being unwise. For at the right time, he does not present himself. At the right time, I gotta write this down. Hosea 13:12. At the right time, he does not present himself. Do you guys get it? At the right time, he does not present himself. He's supposed to present himself at Sukkot with his heart turns towards Jerusalem, but instead he's waiting for Xmas and using all the symbols of Assyria to do Xmas and not presenting himself at the right time. The pang of childbirth come for him, for he is an unwise son. For at the right time, he does not present himself at the opening of the womb. Please let that sink in. Please, please, please. I shall ransom them from the power of Sheol, and I shall redeem them from death. O death, where are your plagues? O Sheol, where is your sting? Compassion is hidden from my eyes. So this is Yehovah talking about how he's going to destroy death eventually. Though he may flourish among his brothers, the east wind and the wind of Yehovah shall come rising from the wilderness, and his fountain shall dry up, his spring shall be parched, and it shall strip his treasury of every precious thing. So, in Revelation where it talks about the fall of Babylon, okay, so you've got this picture here. It's talking about how the fall of the merchants of Babylon are going to fall. Those who are rich say they're rich, okay? So you don't want to be involved in whatever they're doing. Whatever Babylon's doing, you don't want to be involved in it, right? And so that fountain, that spirit, the Xmas spirit is going to be dried up. He's going to stop that spirit from going, and he's going to dry it up. Yehovah is going to do this. We're not doing it. We're just letting you know that it's happening. He's going to dry that spirit up, okay? And he's going to strip the treasury of every precious thing. And that's how he's going to kill death. He's going to kill the authority that the Asher, right, the Assyrian kingship has over the people, because they're going to realize they're going to turn their hearts from Assyria and they're going to turn them towards Jerusalem. This is going to happen. People can argue about it. They can stitch videos and make debates all they want. This is happening. We're watching it right before our eyes. We're watching biblical prophecy happening before our eyes. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So that fountain of spirit, that Xmas spirit, whatever that is, that Asher, the authority of Asher. So Asher, like I said before, the Asher authority is a god of war and a god of kingship, god of war and a god of kingship. That spirit, that ability for that wind to blow, for that spirit to go out is going to be dried up because the Torah is going out, his word is going out. So people are going to come to his assemblies at the correct time. Sorry, I know I'm yelling at you guys. I know if you're here, you don't need me to yell at you, but I just get real hyped up. Okay. Samaria shall bear her guilt because she has rebelled against Jehovah, and they shall fall by the sword. Their little ones shall be dashed in pieces, and their pregnant women ripped open. Well, then, so look into Revelation 2. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. That could be a connection there. Samaria will bear her guilt because she has rebelled against her God, Elohim. They shall fall by the sword, and by their little ones shall be dashed into pieces, and their pregnant women ripped open. That sounds harsh. Did we not just see this happening too in Israel? Let's go to Hosea 14. Return, O Israel, to Jehovah your Elohim. Now remember, Israel in this context is the northern kingdom. It's not Judah. This is the northern kingdom. Hosea was a prophet to the northern kingdom, the kingdom that was divorced. Yeshua said, I come only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I come only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This is Israel and what they were up to when they got divorced. Judah was separate. Judah's separate. They were doing a different thing. Return, O Israel, to Jehovah your Elohim, for you have stumbled because of your iniquity. Iniquity is an interesting word to look into. I recommend a word study on iniquity. It's Awan. It's the lair of jackals. The lair of jackals. It's taking refuge. Let me just look if I have the right one. Avan, to watch with jealousy. To watch with jealousy. Evil eye. It's the evil eye. Iniquity is the evil eye. Affliction, outward appearance. To think best, color, conceit. To furrow yourselves. So Avon, which is another form. Avon is to be evil, perversity. And so when you see the word iniquity, you want to think perverse. They're being perverse. They're taking what's perversion. Jehovah made things a perfect way. He had a perfect thing that he did. He made marriage perfect. He made this, he made food perfect. He made all of these perfect things. His feasts and his festivals are perfect, right? And so what is being perverse? Being perverse is twisting. The devil doesn't create, the devil just twists and perverts things, right? Perverts marriage, perverts relationships, perverts the temple, perverts the holidays, perverts the feasts. So you're either working at the perversion, you're either participating in the perversion, or you're participating in the true thing and putting your eyes and heart towards the true thing that he created, right? Iniquity. So I never knew you, workers of iniquity. I never knew you, those who are consistently working at perversion. Is putting all of your effort, all of your energy, all of your finances into a false feast on a false day. Is that working at perversion, or is that working at his feasts and festivals, his command? Is that coming to his holy mountain, or is that working at iniquity, right? You're working iniquity. That's what you are doing. You're working at the perversion. You're putting all your finances into it. You're putting all away, you're putting all of your energy, time. You're making your biggest feast. You're taking your biggest Sabbath of the year, your biggest holiday of the year, and you're working at that iniquity. And Yeshua says, get away from me. I never knew you, because they didn't get into the word. They didn't get into the word to know him, to get to know what his word said, right? So they're working at the iniquity. They're working at the perversion. People work at the perversions in all sorts of different ways. And we have to check ourselves and say, where am I working at what his word says? Where am I working at what his picture is, the beautiful perfection of his word? Am I working at that? Am I working at glorifying him and glorifying his word? Or am I working at the perversion, right? Is my heart turned toward Assyria, or is my heart turned toward Jerusalem? That's a decision we each have to make. Take with you your words and return to Jehovah and say to him, take away all iniquity, accept what is good, and we will pay with bulls the vows of our lips. Assyria will not save us. We will not ride on horses. We will say no more, our God, to the work of our hands. In you, the orphans find mercy. The fatherless find mercy. So we're supposed to feed the fatherless, okay? So those who don't know the Father, they haven't met the Father yet. We got to feed them and tell them about the Father so that they can come out of Assyria, come out of the deception, and into the Father's house to eat at the Father's table. The Father's table is his word. It's not the things of Assyria. It's not the images of Assyria, right? We have to give them mercy and bring them in, right? I will heal their apostasy. So he's going to heal their apostasy. Don't worry about them. It's up to him. He's going to heal their apostasy. I will love them freely, for my anger has turned from them. It will be like dew to Israel, and he shall blossom like the lily. He shall not take root like the trees of Lebanon. His shoots shall spread out. His beauty shall be like the olive, and his fragrance like Lebanon. They shall return and dwell beneath my shadow. They shall flourish like the grain, and they shall blossom like the vine. Their fame shall be like the wine of Lebanon. So the picture of the trees of Lebanon, there's a picture of the trees being cut down, which is the authority of the cedars of Lebanon. So they're cedars, they're a fir tree, they're an evergreen tree. They're cut down throughout scripture. You see them cut down. And when they're cut down, it's a picture of Hasatan's kingdom being cut down. The king of Asher's kingdom. Remember that king of Asher is a god of war and kingship. So that is the picture of his tree has been cut down, but every year people are re-erecting it. Did you know that there's a verse, and I forget where it is, there's a prophecy in scripture that the trees will rejoice because they'll no longer be cut down? In the last days, after Jehovah and Yeshua have come and the kingdom has come, the trees will rejoice because they're no longer being cut down. Isn't that crazy? All right. So this picture is how he's going to rebuild his kingdom. So the picture of this is his kingdom growing up and his kingdom being established, okay? Hosea 14:8. Oh, Ephraim, what have I to do with idols? It is I who anger and look after you. I am like an evergreen cypress. From me comes your fruit. From me comes your fruit. So you have the picture of the tree that's been cut down and erected, and you've got the idols and the pictures of the god Asher, right? Trying to put the fruit on the tree. You're putting your own fruit on the tree. You're doing the works of your hand to put the fruit on the tree, right? What were the original decorations on the tree? Fruit, nuts, pine cones. They were decorating. So you're taking the works of your hand, the things that you've bought, your offerings, you're taking them and you're putting them on the tree, right? So that is the work of your hands. You're being a craftsman to the trees, okay? And when we look at what the scripture says that the tree of life is, what is the tree of life? His commandments, his word, his wisdom from the commandments, right? So his tree of life is the Torah and Yeshua, right? The word of God and Yeshua is the tree of life. But instead, we have a false tree with a false god on top, Asher on top, right? People turning their hearts towards Assyria, and they're decorating it with the works of their hands. You guys get it? Then they're bending down and putting offerings. People can argue this all they want, but to me, it's just like clear as day. It's clear as day to me. So he is the evergreen cypress. He wants to be the living tree, right? He's the living tree, right? We don't put up dead trees. He's the living tree. From me comes your fruit. If you go on my page, there's a video about this. Whoever is wise, winged genius, that's the Those apakalu who are around the tree, apakalu, they're called winged geniuses. Whoever is wise, let him understand these things. Whoever discerning, you guys are discerning, you're here with me, let him know them. I'm the discerning one, so I'm letting you know the wisdom. Where's the wisdom come from? The ways of Jehovah are right, and the upright walk in them, but the transgressors stumble in them. I rest my case. Court adjourned. Just kidding, guys. I think that's, we're going to do New Testament. I want to point out in Hosea, okay, before we move on to New Testament, there's so much more I could go through, but Abba, what do you want us to go through? I'm going to go through, okay, so in this section, there's a prayer of repentance. Let me just see if I can find it. And just so you are aware of the process, I want you guys to know the process. A lot of people come to me and they're like, I'm still doing spiritual warfare. I'm still having, because you haven't gone through the whole process of the whole thing. Okay. So, yeah, here it is. Okay. So Hosea 14:1. In this section of Hosea 14:1, you have the whole process of coming into the kingdom and getting free and getting delivered. Okay. You have return, O Israel, right? Prayer, repentance, ask for forgiveness, for you have stumbled because of your iniquity. Take with you your words and return to Jehovah and say to him, take away all iniquity and accept what is good. So pray to him to take away your iniquity. That's your repentance. You're turning from the false to the truth. You're turning back to him. Ask for forgiveness, okay? And we pay with bulls and the vows of our lips, okay? So the sacrifice is the contrite heart and the vows of our lips, okay? Because you can't go to Jerusalem and do a sacrifice. So your sacrifice is your contrite heart and the vows of your lips, okay? Assyria will not save us. We will not ride on horses. So Assyria, turn from Assyria to Jerusalem, to the kingdom of Jehovah, okay? Assyria cannot save you. The might of horses is relying on the might of men, relying on the might. Horses are always related to warfare and to might, okay? So you renounce man-made might, okay? And you rely on Jehovah. That's the process, okay? We will say no more our God to the work of our hands. So you're not going to place the things that you are doing, the things that you're coming up with and attaching them to Jehovah. You're instead going to seek what he says in the word. It's a verse in Proverbs that says, those who turn their ear from hearing his Torah, from his instructions, even their prayer becomes an abomination. Why does it become an abomination? Because they're not hearing his instructions. They're not willing to hear his instructions. They're just going to go about it their own way. And that's why they're not getting the deliverance. That's why they're not getting the freedom. He wants you to understand his instructions first. Come to him looking for what you need to change and do in the instructions, right? So he's saying Assyria, blah, blah. And then we will say no more our God with to the work of our hands. In you, the orphan finds mercy, the fatherless, the widow, the orphan. Come into the house. You are the prodigal son coming into the house, okay? So you're going to find the mercy and you're going to find the father and you're going to find his instructions and you're going to eat at his feast table. You're not going to eat at the table of Assyria anymore. You're not going to eat of the things of Assyria anymore. You're going to eat at his feast table at the correct time, in the correct season, to the best of your ability, right? So you're going to trust in Jehovah. Okay, so if you're taking notes, prayer, come to him with the vows of your lips, repentance, ask for forgiveness, receive the good of his table. Receive the good of his table. Receive the instruction. Receive the instruction of the Torah so that your prayer is no longer an abomination. And then he will accept your prayer. Ask him to accept your prayer because your prayer is not going to be an abomination anymore because you receive his instruction. Renounce man-made might and trust in Jehovah. That is the process. So a lot of people, they come to me and they're like, I'm still struggling. And a lot of times it's because they're so focused on the enemy's kingdom still. You got to move your focus from the enemy's kingdom to Jehovah's kingdom and start to work on the positive commandments. Start to work on keeping the Sabbath. Start to honor the Sabbath. Start to honor his feasts. And as you do that, your identity changes and that will deliver you as well, right? Because you realize you're not going to eat in the pig pen anymore. You're not eating in the pig pen. You're not with the pigs anymore. You're coming into his table to his feast, okay? Feasts and tables is a picture of eating his word, consuming his manna, right? His manna and his bread of life, breaking bread with him. The people always sat and they break bread together. That is feasting at his table. You want to be feasting at his table, not a Yule table or an Assyrian table or this table or that table. Who cares about those tables? Why do you want to sit at Santa Claus's table? Why are you sitting at Santa Claus's table when you could sit at the Father's table? So you got to stop being an orphan, hanging out with Santa Claus, and sit at the Father's table. Okay. John. Let's go to John. John 1:41.
He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ. He brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, the son of John. You shall be called Cephas," which means Peter. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said of him, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered him, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered him, "Because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven opened, and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man."
So that's a throwback to where we started with Jacob when he saw the angels ascending and descending in Bethel. And so this is when Yeshua is calling the lost sheep to him, right? So Yeshua is going out and he's saying, "Follow me," to the lost sheep. And he's bringing them back in, right? That's about all we have to cover with that. I'm going to stop the recording. And then if you guys have anything you want to talk about or questions, we can do that.